So in this video, I want to talk about 151 and Paldean Fates because these two are both specialty sets, and early next year they are going to go out of rotation, which basically means they're going to be out of print. These two sets are pretty iconic from the Scarlet and Violet era, but there's a problem. They're both extremely expensive pertaining to sealed product, yet the total set values for both of these aren't extremely high, and especially with Paldean Fates, the amount of value is really concentrated with just a few cards. And it begs the question, is it too late to invest into these sets? Well, let's take a look here. So 151, you can see the total set value is only just a little bit above $1,200. The top chase card being the Charizard at $250. This set is, kind of in the middle of how expensive it is. It's, I guess, a little bit closer to the higher end, but it's nothing crazy. Obviously, there's more expensive sets in, Scarlet and Violet, like, Paldean Evolve might be around there. Maybe it's probably pretty close to 151. Deaths and Rivals is above it. Prismatic is above it. Paldean Fates is above it. I don't know about the other sets like Surging, but they're probably all pretty close. So 151 is kind of in the middle of how expensive it is. But the reason why it is probably not more expensive than it maybe would have been is because the pull rates in the set are not that difficult. So that is the reason why that the prices for 151 has been hindered in terms of singles is because of the pull rates, plus also there being many reprints of this set, products still showing up on at vending machines and stuff. This set is not extremely expensive. And when you go and look at the sealed product prices, it's pretty, crazy how expensive the products are in comparison to the actual value in the set. The Elite Trainer Box is just at about $400. In the past month, even with this recent pullback, 151 ETBs haven't really not done anything. They pretty much stayed the same price. So they're still at $400. And if you look at the past year, how much they've grown, it's pretty insane. It was at $100 a year ago, and now it's 4x'd. Next year, the PCTB. At one point, these PCTBs are pretty close to $1,000. Now they're at around $900, so they've dropped a little bit, but not really by much. 151 UPCs right now are $600. They've dropped a little bit from being in like the mid to lower 600s, so they're kind of around the same price, but still pretty expensive. And you look at all these in the past year, they've all have grown pretty exponentially. Next year, 151 the booster bundles. They've gone down a little bit in the past month. You can see at one point they peaked at around $105, and now they're in the low 90s, low to mid 90s. So they've dropped about 10%. 151 booster bundles are now $1,500, so they're holding about a $50 premium on each booster bundle, $50-$60 now. Premium on each booster bundle because each of these has 10 booster bundles, so it means it's about $150 per booster bundle, and loose ones are about like $90-$95. Blooming Waters right now it's about $180. I did the math on these. It's about a little bit under the price of loose packs, and you can see loose packs right now are $16. Now moving on to Paldean Fates. Paldean Fates right now is actually surprisingly more expensive as a set than 151. 151, even though you might think maybe it'd be more expensive than Paldean Fates, well, the Bubble Mew is the big reason why. Look at the Bubble Mew and how expensive it is. You combine like these top cards, even including the Venusaur, the Zapdos, and Blastoise, it's still not more expensive than the Bubble Mew, which is kind of surprising, but that's how powerful and iconic and how much demand there is for this Bubble Mew. Now, there's also some other top chase cards, the Charizard and the Gardevoir, but let's be honest here, the main thing people are really chasing is the Bubble Mew from Paldean Fates, but Charizard's still pretty expensive. Looking at the prices of the sealed product for Paldean Fates, it's, maybe not too shocking. I mean, Paldean Fates is newer than 151, but not by that much. But Paldean Fates is a lot cheaper than 151, even though the set value is higher, but it is a lot more concentrated with the top three cards really carrying the total set value. You can see here, Paldean Fates ETBs have actually dropped from $300 all the way now down to $270, so it's dropped about 10%, and they're at $270, so about $130 cheaper than 151. Paldean Fates Pokemon Center ETBs have dropped also from about $500 all the way down into the low fours. Paldean Fates booster bundles are pretty much the exact same price as 151 at this point. And the booster pack, surprisingly, the booster pack price is just about as expensive as 151. It's about like $1.50 cheaper than 151, which I find very surprising considering the huge price differences between the ETBs. Like, there's a huge price difference here. Also, with Paldean Fates, with the Pokemon Center ETBs, there's a huge price difference. So it kind of begs the question, okay, first of all, are any of these even worth investing into? And if any of them are, which one is the better choice here? It's a really hard decision because you're kind of playing, the game here of, okay, nostalgia versus, like, you could say value, because there is a way higher chase card in Paldean Fates, the Bubble Mew being at this point about 2.5 times more expensive than the Charizard. So you can get a lot more value out of here. Plus, it's a lot cheaper to open up. You look at, these products, booster pack wise, they're pretty similar, but if you're talking about, sealed product, it's a lot cheaper. So you can consider, possibly, Paldean Fates. If you can make an argument that, okay, it has more value, the Bubble Mew is super iconic. I mean, $600 compared to like, $250. There's obviously a difference there. You can maybe make the argument that the Bubble Mew is such an iconic card, and, the price point of the ETBs specifically being $150 cheaper. So about, I think, like 35% cheaper than 151. Possibly Paldean Fates is a better investment at that point. If any of these are good investments, maybe this is the way to go. But here's the thing, obviously you look at Paldean Fates, it's popular, right, because of the Bubble Mew, but 151 has the nostalgia factor, right? Nostalgia is a huge thing that I think is takes into account with the set and how it performs. 151 brought many people back into Pokemon during Scarlet and Violet. Even though 151 is not as expensive of a set, it's already shown it's gotten more expensive in the short term because of how much people have opened it, and just it being that popular. And 151 obviously being Gen 1, that's a huge factor for a lot of people, and why they like the set is because it has that nostalgia factor. Plus there's like, I think, demigod packs in 151, so there's also that factor. I don't know if Paldean Fates has it, but 151 is just more nostalgic because it's Gen 1. But, looking at both of these, even though you can't make an argument of which one is the better investment, are any of these good at all at their current, prices? See, this kind of gets to the weird point where it's really hard to say it's a great investment. Even though I do truly believe 151, is it going to get more expensive over time? Sure, right? But the way I sort of think about things is this: how long do I realistically think it's going to take to double in price? That's sort of a metric I sort of use, a time frame, a sort of number, like doubling. How long is that going to take compared to something else, as an investment? Well, 151 ETBs being already $400. You can go a lot of ways about this. When we see prices that are this high, sometimes they grow exponentially, because sometimes when they get higher in price points, there's bigger price jumps, and that's where sometimes we see things exponentially grow. So is it possible in a couple of years from now, we see normal 151 ETBs at $800? Maybe. But it's really hard to say that with really great confidence, because of just how expensive it is already, and considering somewhat of the value of the set. Okay, I mean, it's already extremely expensive. How much more can it really go in the short term? It's up for debate, because $400, I mean, how much more do we see this going up? Like I said, it can grow exponentially, but at $400 for an ETB, it's kind of rough. Sort of the same thing with the PC ETB. This is the most expensive PC ETB in Pokemon at $900. It's really hard to say this is then also a great investment, being the most expensive product of PCTV we've ever seen. So it's really hard to say these two are great investments being this expensive. Now, Paldean Fates is sort of in that middle ground. It's not as expensive as 151, but it's also not that cheap. For example, Prismatic, if you compare to any of these, it's much cheaper. So this is sort of in the middle ground then. Paldean Fates being at 270. It seems like with this price point, I don't know, just it seems like it would have more room to grow at 270, but it is still quite expensive, but it's not $400 expensive, so it's kind of in that middle ground, but also, the set is worth more. And also the PCTB is only worth, if you think about it, $130, $140 more compared to the normal ETB, which is like about 50% more compared to the 151 normal ETB, being about half the price of the PCTB. So maybe you can see some value in the PCTB here as an investment. But overall, these two sets are going out of print early next year. So if you do want to invest into any of these products, you probably want to invest sometime before that, because what we see sometimes with sets is once they go out of print, people realize, or especially investors that are more risk adverse, like, okay, there's no more coming out from now on. Now they're out of print. I'm going to buy because it's a safe investment. So we'll see what happens to these sets once they really do go out of rotation early next year. But as of right now, it is really hard to predict where these prices are going to move for these products. Mainly, especially 151 being a generational set, but it is very expensive. And Paldean Fates is sort of in a weird middle ground where it has a lot more value than 151, but it's mainly concentrated with these few cards. And the products, they're kind of in the middle ground of being expensive. How much more can it go from 270? It seems like just by the price point, it possibly has more room to grow in the short term than 151. But who knows? Maybe there's some big price jumps with 151 ETBs. But overall, these two sets are both expensive, but they're expensive for a reason. And therefore, I mean, you have to make the decision if you've just started investing now. Should I buy any of these or not? My personal opinion and verdict with both of these is that at this point, you're investing into these sort of as a collection piece, mainly more than just percentage in gains with investing, because there's way better options out there. But these are just such both great sets. It's kind of hard to just say I don't want to buy any of these, because in the very long term these will do pretty well. So that's all I want to share in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know, would you rather invest into Paldean Fates ETBs or 151, and let me know why. So that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.